Awesome. Welcome to Impact Show here in my home city of San Clemente, California. I'm so excited to have Robert Towles as my guest.
Thanks,
I've been looking forward to this interview since the first time I met you. Not because of your beautiful facial hair, but what's
I brought in a little bit just for this interview.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
We'll see how it goes.
Well, we've had like a dozen interviews. They're all impromptu. None of this is ever planned. We follow the wind. We don't hunt out people and then get them on our show. So this experiment has worked out very well. Our shows are seeing an average of 20,000 unique views. So we're stoked that our audience is so receptive to our content. We're always looking at impact makers in industry, in life, in business, and we all gain something from it. And since our first interview with Marty O'Connor to Palmer Luckey and all the people in between, we've had some remarkable stories. And I'm so stoked to have Robert here. You know, I'm a father of a 7 and a 5-year-old, and my wife and I talk about technology, screen time, and gaming. And gaming has become something where I grew up, it was like Atari and Nintendo, and I'm sitting here with the impresario of gaming. So I'm so excited to learn from you today, to get to know a little bit about you, and how gaming has just transformed not just the youth generation, but the entire planet across multiple generations.
Yeah.
And if you're not gaming yourself, you know someone that is, and there's so much to it, not only the gaming part, but just watching people game. So this will be a fascinating conversation around those types of topics. So maybe Robert, if we could just start with a little bit of background on yourself, maybe you could just give us like a couple minutes on who you are, where you grew up, and how you got into this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, fun stuff. You know, so I grew up in the high desert, backside of Lake Arrowhead, a place called Hesperia. So not a whole lot going on up there, but you know, riding motorcycles and, you know, just not a whole lot of entrepreneurship going on.
Right.
But we moved down to Orange County in 2004. Wanted a better environment for my family, for school, and more opportunity, right? Definitely more entrepreneurship happening in Orange County than the high desert, right? And so, but our family's older now. It's wild. Our youngest just graduated high school. So, you know, it's just nuts. So four kids. We, you know, one daughter that's with the Lord, but 3 boys. So we have an 18-year-old, 21-year-old, and 25-year-old.
Nice.
And so I guess, you know, starting young was pretty awesome. I mean, we did everything together. Whether it's the skate park, I was doing all the same stuff they were, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's been great. But yeah, since 2004, I've been down here. Been an entrepreneur my entire life.
Right. Tell me about that. Yeah.
So I owned a restaurant when I was in my early 20s. Started making investments, even high-risk investments in technology when I was young.
Right.
And I figured that I would just always work twice as hard, have enough money to make high-risk investments.
Right.
And it's really through the high-risk investments that you learn so much, right? Because you get to see the innovation of technology from day one all the way up. But through that, you know, was just working nonstop around the clock. So when I started having success, when I became older, a lot of people would ask like, oh man, when did you do that? Or when did you make that investment? And for me, my answer was when you were sleeping.
Right. Right, because like when the market's working while you're sleeping, right?
And that's it.
Right.
Yeah. When you're sleeping and just putting in the extra hours. And so yeah, we've been been very, very fortunate, and you know, just going through some of those different investments and given the opportunity to get into gaming about 10 years ago was absolutely amazing.
So how'd you make that bridge from high risk investments? Did something pay off and then that led you to gaming? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And then start opening it up into gaming and tell us how you got into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we were doing something really cool on Facebook back in 2009, 2010, to where we were embedding invite codes into Facebook profiles. And so people could talk about different products or different services through Facebook, and we were able to track the transactions through their algorithm and start paying people based on the virality of them like virtual selling.
Got it.
And so it was almost the beginning of affiliate marketing back then in Facebook, you know, years ago.
What year do you think that was around?
So we went into beta end of 2008.
Okay, right.
Ended up just killing it. And this is when Facebook was more open platform.
Okay.
So I got a call one day. This was in early 2010. A buddy of mine with a game, kind of a game and design company up in Ottawa called Fuel Industries said, "Hey, I have some buddies down at EA. They want to start a gaming company, but they're kind of freaked out about telling others in the gaming space about their idea because they don't want their idea to be stolen." And I'm like, "Well, I can't build games. I can't steal their idea, but maybe I could write a check, right?"
There you go.
So we met up early 2010, and we're sitting at a restaurant, and there's this like pile of paperwork sitting there, and three guys, and they're telling me about their experience in gaming and being able to monetize the free user, saying that eventually people are going to be playing games on a mobile device. They'll be able to transact, process fast enough and everything else. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But they said something that stuck out is they said, "Hey, we know the secret sauce to monetizing the free user and getting these microtransactions." And then they showed me what I know now as a GDD, a game development doc.
Okay.
So they put it down and he said, "So here it is. Here's our idea." And it was a bingo game.
Okay.
That was it. Facebook bingo
I
game.
can do bingo. Yeah, that's pretty easy.
And that's one of the reasons I invested. Because I'm like, I know what bingo is. And the rest of the world probably knows what bingo is. And you know how to get people playing this bingo game and get them to spend money. So me being naive, not really knowing the landscape of the gaming space, at the time, one out of every 100,000 app submittals was a hit.
Okay.
I knew none of this, right?
Wow, that's a long shot.
Yeah. So I write the first check.
Right.
Company's not doing good for like a year, literally.
Big check, little check.
It was significant.
Big.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty good
You're
size.
a high risk investor.
I'm a high risk guy. So because I always feel like you could always make more money. Right. But you can't always find the right investment. I felt like if I lost this investment, I'll just make more money. I'll figure it out. I'll work more.
Okay.
And so
high risk, high reward.
That's right. And those are the things that I like. So a year goes, down the road. My biggest mistake was there was a second round opened up, and this is one I'm kind of, loving the team and visiting in Santa Monica, every week where the headquarters was. It's growing, and I thought, man, I just don't know. I don't know if I want to come in more. So I put together a B round of investors and kind of helped with that process. And it just took off 6 months later.
Wow.
I wish I would have written that second check as well.
Okay.
But our B round people made about 25 times their money.
Wow. And what was the impetus of that takeoff? Like why, what was it in between round 1 and 2 that kept that virality of the game going?
It was user engagement. And my business partner now with Inc. Games, who I invested in.
Okay.
Right? So now we're the same company.
Right.
His name is Josh Gause. And Josh always says, I love to make losers feel like winners. He's really good at that in the game. And so you add a lot of users like that. So you could add millions and millions of users if they feel like winners and they're excited to invite other people to the platform. And that was really it. And sure enough, and hardly any money was ever spent on marketing.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to that. So the winners, it's like they get a dopamine hit. Right? So there's this little rush that's happening, and you guys kept investing into that. How did you discover that delta right there on that little jolt? Because that jolt could be the difference between failure and $1 billion business. How did you discover that science? Because I think for our viewers, we have so many people in AI building apps, platforms. What is that jolt? How do you hit that jolt, and how do you study that jolt?
For us, it was a lack of money. We had to figure it out. Since we didn't have a ton of money in the bank, we had to be smart. And I think the issue with most companies is they have too much cash. And when you have too much cash, it covers a lot of sins, a lot of mistakes, right? We didn't have that luxury. And so we had to make sure that we were paying attention to the user, paying attention to what they wanted. And what they wanted in that particular situation was more access to more bingo cards for inviting people instead of paying for them, right? All these little things. But then when they would be in maybe the Tokyo room for a while playing in the game, they didn't want to leave. They were out of free credits. They would get their wallet out and start spending money. So it's a fine balance.
And do you feel that mobile was part of that proliferation,
Yeah.
if it would have stayed on workstation before the mobile medium grew,
Yeah.
could that have impacted the business? Was mobile a big part of your success?
Yeah, so one of the guys out of the three, his name was Chris Tyler. There was a couple interesting things about Chris. Chris was almost 50 years old at the time, and when I sat down before I wrote the first check, I said, "Well, why do you guys need my money? You know, you're in the gaming space, you're rock stars in the space." And he said, "Well, we don't want to tell anybody else about this idea,
Right.
because they'll steal the idea."
Sure.
And he said, "Two, I'm dying of cancer." And he said, I have probably, well, at first I asked him, I said, "Well, how long do you have to live?" And he said, "Maybe a couple of years." I said, "How long is it before we know if we have a hit?" And he said, "About 4 months." And I said, "Let's do it." And so, you know, we went all in. Sure enough, he did know the secret sauce. And he went all in on mobile.
Okay.
He said people are going to be spending money and playing most of these games on a mobile device.
Right.
He's all the time will come. And at that time, you know, what sticks out of my mind is Candy Crush at the time.
Candy Crush.
They were getting really good
Sure.
at what they did back then.
Right.
And
Kind of annoying though with all their sharing on Facebook. For all those people
That's
that
right,
asked me to
that's
play
right.
Candy Crush, I'm not your friend anymore.
Yeah, just
that
do
was
it.
so annoying.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's really interesting because we started kind of around the same time. And to fast forward, those guys, I mean, they really went all in on one game.
Right.
Stuck with it. Their exit ended up being over $5 billion
That's amazing.
on that one title.